Hello, this is Louise Jameson, and you're listening to The Sirens of Audio.
Oh, yes, quite so. Yes, of course, I do know the medium.
Toby Hadoke's Time Travels, The Doctor Who Show, Big Blue Box. Chartable said they were the most popular podcasts, so I played them on double speed. Barely took up any space on my phone memory. So you're going to do this? Let them all think you're listening to podcasts about the TV show only. It's the only way. Then they can all forget me. I got too big, me too noisy. Time to step back into the shadows. And Philip? Forced to listen to these sketches all his days? His days, yes. His nights? Well, he needs to stop his dog barking and keep his kids quiet. But that's between me and him, eh? So many stories, me one. I'll help you review them, of course. Well, you're not exactly going anywhere, are you? But you're a fool nonetheless. It's all still waiting for you. The endless box sets, the Dudman of the 11th, and the podcast. Goodbye, me too. The first podcast. The podcast that must always be heard, hidden in plain sight. The podcast you've been running from all your life. The Sirens of Audio. The Sirens of Audio. The Sirens of Audio. G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and other things from time to time in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day, Dwayne. G'day, audiophiles.
G'day Philip, how's things with you?
Things are great, thank you. Very busy and life's full and what a joy.
Now, today's a great episode and it's one of your babies because you really love this show, both the TV series and the Big Finish audio adaptation, which is the Omega Factor. And we have the opportunity today to have a chat with one of the stars of both the TV series, and she appears in many of the audios and wrote a few of the audios too. And that's Natasha Gerson, the daughter of the original writer Jack Gerson. So, what prompted you to reach out to Natasha?
Well, she was actually on our page commenting and forwarding some of our stuff on. So she's followed us for quite a while. And
Right.
she's liked our stuff and she's retweeted some of our stuff and it was just she was retweeting some of our stuff. I thought I might just reach out to her because I saw her she was open. I went, well, actually. So I just started a conversation and went from there.
Excellent. That's fantastic.
People like what we do. I like them.
Yeah, it's always a good start. What appeals to you about the Omega Factor? We've talked about that before, but I guess the first thing was Louise Jameson.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly nostalgic value. So because being a huge Doctor Who fan, Louise was in it, and so I started watching because she was in it. Totally inappropriate. I mean, the age I was, and as I said, I think I will mention in the interview the fact that I had the book first. So where my Doctor Who books were, every week I'd go up to my Angus and Robertson store with my pocket money. I'd buy a new Doctor Who book, and I noticed another book just near them called the Omega Factor by Jack Gerson, and I thought, that's Louise on the cover. I'll take that. And the book is just the first episode, played it out a lot, and it was so gripping and so scary and suspenseful. And as a kid, it really captured me. And then the show started on the ABC a bit after that. and scared the life out of me. And I don't know why my parents let me watch it. I don't think they knew what I was watching. Totally inappropriate for me to watch at the age I was, but boy, it was good. And it just, because it was sort of the first horror come suspense thing I'd ever watched, it really stuck in my head. And so I've always loved it. And then, of course, when John Dorney and Louise, came back to do the roles again, and Big Finish brought it back so successfully. I mean, really captured the spirit of the show and the different sort of tones you could get. It was brilliant. So I really enjoyed it. And Natasha, I remembered her from the show because I thought she was in a night dress. Apparently, she wasn't. But my memory of her was in this night dress. And in the first episode, but towards the end of the first episode, the main character's wife is murdered by Natasha appearing in the road in front of her husband driving, and he drives off the road, and she's killed in the car crash. And that to me was just such a poignant moment because I wasn't expecting her to die. And as I said, Natasha just being there in the road, and she'll tell the story of it soon. It just has always stuck in my head as a major memory. So she's always been in my head as this character.
And it was great how Big Finish turned that character from a non-speaking role to a speaking role for the audios, as you would need to do.
Yeah, so she's mute in the episode she's in the TV show, which is amusing.
Yeah,
but yeah, so the way they do it is very clever too.
Yeah. All right, we're going to talk to Natasha very shortly, but before we do that, do you know what, Philip?
Oh no, what, Dwayne?
Oh, you do so. We got to jump down the rabbit
hole.
The rabbit
Here
hole.
We go.
I thought it'd go up that time.
Yeah, I know, you silly boy.
I know. What's the Fourth Doctor say? You can't. What's the point of life if you can't be childish sometimes? Something like that. All right. Now, I want to talk about my travels and what I've been doing on my travels, because this is my wife's fault. I blame her for a lot of things, but sometimes it's not all that bad. My wife loves visiting op shops wherever we go. Is that what you call op shops in the UK, Philip?
I don't know what they're called. Maybe charity shops. I'm not sure what they're called. I don't know what they call in the UK.
Anyway,
is short for opportunity shop.
Yeah,
but usually run by charities.
Yeah, so I've gone around. I've picked up a few books here and there, but mostly what I find is unusual DVDs, and I find some of them in the weirdest places. So my question to you, Philip, is: do you think that we should completely abandon physical media? Everyone's going streaming, and I'm finding more and more interesting stuff in the op shops because everyone's getting rid of their DVDs now. Should we do that?
No, daft. So,
yeah. The other thing too is, sorry, you go on. I'll get to my other thought later.
The trouble with streaming services is that they drop shows, and
so exactly.
I know Blake 7 was on BritBox, and it's not anymore. They just dropped it. So if I'd sold my Blake 7 DVD collection, I couldn't watch Blake 7 now because they've dropped it all. And where's Classic? See, there's Classic Who. You can't get Classic Who. I have Unearthly Child on DVD. People aren't going to be able to watch it anymore because Anthony Coburn's Bizarre Son has pulled the plug on it ever being released. And so if you don't have the physical DVD of an Unearthly Child, it's now a lost story. And you won't be able to get it or see it anymore. So all these fans are missing out on the very first Doctor Who show.
I think there's I'm not sure if it's a fact, but I've heard people say that it's the rights to streaming that Anthony Coburn has the rights to. So streaming, and I think
it's not only that, because
it's not the Blu. Like he can't. I heard he can't stop the Blu-ray, but he has stopped the audiobook, hasn't he?
I think he has. Well, yeah, William Russell recorded Unearthly Child years ago, and it's never been released because Anthony Coburn, or his son, whatever his name is refusing the book to be released. So
if you do want to hear an audiobook version of Doctor Who and an Unearthly Child by Terrance Dicks, just check out our channel because it's on there for you to listen to.
Be one of the thousands of people who've actually listened to that episode because that's huge.
Yeah. People say my old woman is very good. Have you heard it, Philip? You probably haven't even heard it.
I'm sorry, mate. I haven't bothered to listen to it. I have the book.
You got to listen to you got to listen to my voices.
Okay, maybe I'll give it a go sometime. Yeah. So, what were you going to say about streaming services and DVDs?
I can't remember now. I've lost my train of thought. I was going to flag it, but I forgot. But I just want to show you what I got. Where was I? Kununurra, which is a place in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, meaningless to every person listening, even those in Australia.
So right up in the north of Australia, on the border of Western Australia and the Northern Territory, I found this classic British drama.
Right.
And there's 4 different TV serials in there.
Which are? Can't wait to see what these are.
I have got the original Poldark, not the most recent remake. So
That's a lot of
Poldark.
fun. Yep.
That's
great.
I have got. This is the
Just
classic.
Season 1.
I Claudius. No, the whole series.
Oh, wow.
I Claudius, which I had only seen because I found I Claudius on YouTube. I think I'd only seen it there before.
YouTube. Yeah.
I've got the Scarlet Pimpernel with Richard E. Grant.
Season 1. Yep.
Yeah, which I've never seen, and the Booby Prize, literally, Lady Chatterley.
Okay.
So
I don't know.
That's got
if it's in.
Sean Bean. Yeah.
Right.
And
so
literally,
how much was the box? How much did you pay for that?
$10.
Oh, good grief. Okay.
$10 for that.
Just like Claudius, I'd pay so much for.
Would you? Yeah. So how much?
I'll give you $10 for Claudius.
So if you keep your eye out in op shops, charity stores, things like that, you might be able to pick up stuff like that. And I've even found in one secondhand bookstore, someone's estate, they dropped off about 70 Big Finish audios. I bought those a couple of years ago in Devonport in Tasmania. So a lot of them already had. There was some in there that were good finds, but I bought them all, so I could sell most of them on. But yeah, keep your eye out with people getting rid of their physical media, because when all these things disappear, I even worry that, the Big Finish website might go down at some point and I might lose all my downloads that I haven't downloaded. I need to get to it.
Yes, I keep meaning to keep downloading and storing.
Because you get in the habit of using the app,
you've
got to clear up space all the time.
Yeah, it's not only just the app goes down either, or the site goes down. They might just lose permission for a series, like when they lost the rights for Tomorrow People or other things, and suddenly it's just gone because they've lost the rights to that show. So you can actually lose all your downloads at that point. So make sure you keep your downloads up to date.
Absolutely.
Somewhere. But finding enough storage space for that is a mammoth job.
Storage space is the issue, and then if you're like me, you'll get it all downloaded, and then you'll be stressed all the time as to whether your hard drive's going to crash or not. So you're buying all these extra hard drives as backups, and But physical media is good. You don't have to worry about that. Don't have to worry about it at all. And I do get envious when I see UK reviewers and things on the YouTube channels holding up their physical copies of these brand new Big Finishes that's too expensive to get out to Australia anymore.
Yeah, I know.
So I get a little bit sad about that. But anyway, other media, and there are still Big Finishes out there secondhand if you look around. They are out there. So yeah, don't completely abandon your physical media. That's the answer to my question, I think.
I agree.
All right. Shall we have a chat with Natasha Gerson?
That will be great fun. Let's do it.
Let's throw in a trailer for the series of the Omega Factor that she first wrote for, and that was series 3.
There's something coming, Adam. Him, but not him.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions, The Omega Factor, Series 3.
There are CCTV cameras being placed all over my office, my lab, in the corridors.
She was discovered asleep.
Yes, you said.
Floating half a metre above the ground.
She's been suffering from blackouts. Wakes up, no idea where she's been, covered in dirt. You are about 12 weeks into the pregnancy.
No, not possible.
That horror needs support.
She's getting...
She needs to be seen for who she is. Her story needs to be listened to.
Why are you here, Edward? What do you want?
Pointless. Worthless.
Without worth. Listen to me, Adam. I'm begging you. Don't leave me to suffer in darkness.
I'm assuming Department 7 hasn't led Omega to what it's really after yet.
I wish for Jake. Dead 10 years. I wish my mum was back too. There.
Claire, you mustn't. You could stuff your experiments.
Just send them away. Make them go.
What's been trapped will stay trapped forever.
This is a power.
I believe in the Holy Spirit.
Feels like the whole place is being torn apart.
You will submit. You will serve.
Immortality.
Big Finish. We love stories.
Time to play.
So many people have heard of Natasha through her screams and through fear, and we're very glad to welcome her to the Science of Audio as both an author and an actress. Natasha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for asking me.
No, I've really been looking forward to talking to you. You have incited lots of fear in the past. When I was about 10 years old, I first watched your father's show, The Omega Factor, and your performance scared the life out of me.
I didn't do very much. That's quite something.
Oh, it was pretty terrifying that first episode. But we'll get to that soon. Firstly, where are you talking to us from?
Sorry, I'm talking to you from Glasgow, and I'm in my bed because I'm full of the cold.
Oh, that's pretty miserable. But thank you so much for still joining us. That's great.
Not at all.
So were you born and raised in Glasgow?
Yes, I was. I was brought up by my father. My parents were divorced when I was pretty young, only a few months old, I think. And so I went to live with my father and my grandparents. And apart from times I've been away working and the time I spent at ballet school in London, I've always lived here. I'd actually like to live in Paris, but thanks to some nameless people who voted for Brexit, that's very difficult now.
Yes, indeed it is. I'm very fond of Glasgow. My mother was born in Glasgow, and her father and all his family. He was one of 11. So all from Glasgow. And very proud to be Scottish. Scottish, they always used to talk about the fact they'll always be in England as long as Scotland stands.
Yes.
And similarly. Do you want to tell us a bit about your father? Because he's very well known in terms of both a writer and for what he did for television. So tell us a bit about your father.
Well, I was his only child. We were very close. I was always very interested in his writing. He was a very gentle man. No, he's no longer with us. He died almost exactly 12 years ago. But no, he just had a vast body of work. But the Omega Factor was one of his favourite things, and he loved the supernatural. Other children were read Enid Blyton, but I was read things by Edgar Allan Poe and Conan Doyle and stuff. He used to frighten the life out of me with bedtime stories. M.R. James was another favourite.
So he loved really scary stories. I mean, his work was in terms of production. I mean, I know he wrote for Zcast, Southern's Law, The Regiment. I mean, he wrote for every major television channel there was, and yet he was always very firmly entrenched in Glasgow, wasn't he, in being Scottish?
He did, yes. There's a bit of there still is a bit of a north-south divide with television. And we all have a chip on our shoulder up here, I think, a little bit, thinking that everything north of Watford is provincial and not quite right, even though they're not supposed to say that anymore. But I think that's changing. But there was always a bit of a battle to get stuff done from BBC Scotland. But he managed to do a fair body of work.
Growing up with divorced parents at that particular time was a was quite a stigma around it, or was there? What was it like growing up with
I think
living with your dad and divorced parents in the
I think
in the
when you're
50s,
a
60s?
child, you think everything's all right. I was lucky in that there wasn't any great friction going on between my mother and my father. My mother married again, she's still alive, and she lives in Glasgow, but she's more like a sort of lunatic big sister, and I've got two half siblings. But yes, I think that was why I was so close to my dad. I was lucky that I had his parents as well. And I was actually taken on holiday, spoilt little madam, by my grandparents to places like Venice and Florence and places I was much too young to appreciate. I don't think I was taken to the Uffizi Gallery when I was about 4. It wasn't that we were wealthy or anything. It's just that my grandfather had this thing of taking children abroad. And he was quite interesting because he was a lapsed Jew whose family had come to Glasgow in, I think, probably the 1880s. And his grandfather, great-grandfather, had come across probably after some pogrom from Ukraine. And they got to Glasgow and they thought it was New York, and they stayed there. And I know now where he lived, but my grandfather fell out with his dad, who ran off with one of the waitresses from the cafe. We all thought this was terribly romantic, but apparently it wasn't, because they left the child and just went off and travelled around Europe. But I've since met their descendants, so I've got a whole new set of cousins from Maurice Gerson's little episode with the waitress from the restaurant. And my grandfather never spoke to his father again. So he was very keen. I don't think he really approved when my dad was divorced. He was very disapproving of this. But yes, I think it makes you I was quite introverted. I played a lot on my own. I did have friends. But I never felt it was a stigma. Nobody said to me, "Oh, where's your mum?" Because occasionally she would put in an appearance. She went to live in Cyprus for a while. But yeah, you're right. I think when you get older, you realise it does sort of have an effect on your character. I think I was very attached to my father and a bit lacking in confidence for quite a long time. But he helped give me the confidence, so it works out. There's no such thing as a perfect childhood, I don't think. Are you both from two-parent families, or?
I was actually adopted.
You were adopted, and that's another.
In the early 70s, that was young mothers. My mother was 14, so it wasn't the done thing to keep your babies at that time. So yeah, I was adopted. My upbringing was okay. So I'm only, I'm not fully insane, but
Yeah, well, all the Gersons are insane anyway. But apart from that, no, well, it was, and I'll always miss my father. And I'm glad my mother's still here, but and I'm close to her, but not quite in the same way.
Mm. Now, I believe your original passion was actually ballet. Is that right?
I started off as a dancer, yes, and I was a chubby teenager. So after a year or so with Scottish Ballet, they booted me out. And then I started losing weight. So I did do more dancing again after that, but became much more passionate about acting and writing. I still do.
So when you left school, what did you do in terms of acting and writing?
I went. I didn't start writing until a bit later on. I started with a children's show about Maisie the Kilted Kitten from Morningside. I spent quite a large part of my life playing Maisie the kitten. It was the books were written by a lovely lady called Aileen Patterson, and that kind of kick-started it. And a lot of children's stuff, community drama, and then I was commissioned to write a full-length play in 1990, which was quite dark. It was about 3 murderesses sharing a flat. Madeline Smith, Ruth Ellis, and Lizzie Borden. It wasn't quite clear where they were, but that was the first thing that was professionally produced for adults anyway. And my father did encourage me a lot.
So how much did he do in terms of training you and building you up into the creative arts?
He gave me advice. He didn't really train me. I would just say he influenced me a lot in the way he worked. And he was a great writer of dialogue. So I like to think that I've inherited a bit of his talent for that. Of course,
now one of your fathers
go to Hollywood and didn't, but there you are. He worked here, so that was fine. But he wrote books too, so I've written a couple of audio books for Big Finish.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to them. So one of your father's works is most remembered for is The Omega Factor. I mean, as I say, he wrote a lot, books, TV shows, very proficient writer, and yet The Omega Factor is one of the things he's most well known for. Now, do you remember how that all came about? Because you ended up being in it partly.
He always wanted to do something about the supernatural, perhaps more the supernatural than science fiction. I'm sorry, my voice is really croaky, but a lot of people think it is science fiction, but it's not. It's something slightly different. So it's something more X-Factor-ish. And George Galaccio, the producer, was keen for him to do this. So I think it was not back the first time, and then they agreed to let BBC Scotland do 10 episodes. And then it disappeared, never to be seen again until Big Finish took it up.
It was still it was strongly remembered. I remember it. I actually first got it as a book, just the first episode. So I'm coming from Australia, and so it would have taken a while after it was shown in BBC UK to come out here. I think it was probably about 12 months. But before the episode came out, the book was released out here, which had Louise Jameson on the cover with.
Yeah, I've still got a copy of that.
Yeah, so do I, just next to me. And I remember reading that first, and I would have been about 11 years old, 12 years old. And that first chapter, which isn't in the TV show at all, it's a chapter about the main character as a little boy seeing the future and being visited by a psychologist and saying, "Oh, well, I won't see you again." And he said, "Oh, don't you like me?" "Oh, no, it's not that." And of course, he has an accident and dies on the way home, being terrified. But reading this book through, because I was a huge Doctor Who fan and Louise Jameson was on the cover.
Yeah.
So I had to read this book and see this show. But I still remember that being a very early, probably one of my first adult novels. I was reading lots of Doctor Who Target novels at the time. That would have been one of my first adult novels, and certainly my first. Is it horror? It's heading that way, and just it having a huge effect and profound. As I said, I remember so many scenes from that book because your father painted the scenes so well and with such clarity, and it scared the life out of me, but in a fun way.
He wasn't above nicking things from other films. Have you seen a film with Tala Andrews, or what did they call it here? God, I should know. I've seen it about 100 times. It's based on an M.R. James story called Casting the Runes. And it was made in about 1957. And the only thing that rather spoiled it was this rather artificial-looking monster. But I still think it was a demon, but I still think it holds up. But what is it about it? Why do we like frightening ourselves to death? I don't know where it comes from.
No.
I was actually going to ask you that. What do you think growing up with your dad? You're obviously very close. What do you think what was his fascination with the supernatural and the paranormal?
Well, he always was. He told me a couple of stories about he thought it was dangerous to dabble. He said never have anything to do with things like Ouija boards. And like his friend Phil McCall, he found out he could hypnotize people. I never witnessed any of this, but he actually hypnotized a girlfriend at a party quite accidentally. And she behaved in, she didn't remember a thing about it. She didn't do anything too outrageous, but she broke some glasses, stuff like that. And he was very, very frightened of using any kind of power like that. It's a bit like having a poltergeist. And he also spoke about another occasion when, also at a party in Glasgow, they were always pretty wild, where they had a seance and they used a Ouija board and a room was wrecked. And he wasn't an exaggerator about talking about real life experiences. I'd love to know where this room was, but he wouldn't talk about it too much. So he was always quite nervous. He said he treated that kind of thing with respect. And when we were doing the Omega Factor, the advisor for the series was a man called Professor Archie Roy, who was the professor of parapsychology at Glasgow University. And he actually told us there was a coven off Byres Road, which is in the West End of Glasgow. And he told me where it was. And I used to walk around the back lanes, and there's a carved stone cat on the back of the building. So my dad was always going to use that. It's got its back arched. Got a picture of it somewhere. But I think I used it in an Omega episode. But he just loved stuff like that. And when we were interested in the serial killers, ghosts, God, what an unhealthy childhood I had. But I think if you're interested in serial killers, you don't actually do it yourself. So it's kind of harmless. But when he came down to visit me in ballet school, I was staying with family friends in the East End of London. And we did Jack the Ripper tours before they even invented them. I remember us wandering around the East End trying to find the sites of all the murders. But ghosts were definitely the thing. And that was one of his major interests when he was writing.
So your dad talks about having paranormal experiences. Have you ever had any then?
Have I ever had any
paranormal experiences?
I've had things where I've thought I knew things were going to happen. And I've had bad feelings about something and something bad has happened. But I try not to dwell on it too much. And I think that's a very well-known phenomenon. So whether it's a genuine psychic experience, I don't know.
So how did you come to be cast in the TV show, The Big Factor?
I pretended to be someone else because I was so determined that I didn't want them to think it was nepotism. So I went to see Paddy Russell, the director, who was also a Doctor Who director, just pretending to be a completely different person. So that's how I was determined to have something to do with the Omega Factor because I was quite in on it with my dad from the beginning. It was awfully the music and everything like that.
So when you were cast, they had no idea who you were. You were just an actress coming to apply. Wow. So, what do you remember much about the actual filming?
Oh, quite a lot. Yeah, they nearly killed me during episode 1. Yeah, and
in your night dress in the middle of the night on the middle of the road.
That was actually a dress. Thank you for calling it a night dress because I hated it. But anyway, that's a minor aspect of it. We went to this riding school with a road through it outside Glasgow, and I sat in the van, and there was a man I hadn't been introduced to sitting at the other end, and he came and spoke to me, and he was the stunt driver. So when it came to the time, it was about 10 o'clock at night, Paddy said, just go and stand in the middle of the road, and when you see the car coming down the hill, just start to walk towards it. Don't worry, he'll stop before he gets to you. And he did. He stopped about 5 feet from my hips. And I was so naive and eager to please. I just said, yes, I'll do anything. And there was something wrong with the sound, so they had to do it again. And the thing is, when you see the end of episode 1, you can hardly see me in the road. So I was deeply disappointed that I'd risked life and limb, and you can't even see me. But it was all very atmospheric. The stunt driver hurt himself the next day. He drove into a tree and hurt his leg quite badly. I think that was when they filmed the crash.
Right. I mean, it's a very powerful scene, though, and major consequences for the whole story.
And I'm still friends with poor Joanna, who played his wife. We still would love to get into one of the Big Finish or something else we're doing. So at the moment, I'm working on a theatre project based on some of the characters from Omega Factor with a colleague. Okay. So that would be another element.
So it would have been about 2014 or so that Big Finish. Did they approach you about bringing back the Omega Factor? How did that work? I assume you own all your father's estate now.
Yes, I do. And they said, would you mind if we put it onto audio? And I was absolutely thrilled. And I said, I'd like to be in it, but I'm not forcing you. But it was good because Morag found a voice. She did a lot of moaning and wailing, but she found a voice. And it was a real experience because you would suddenly be asked to play somebody else. And it was great fun working with Louise again. And John Dorney, who played Tom's son. It was...
What was the recording like? So when you finally got... I mean, how much approval did you give? Did you give approval to all the scripts that first box set?
He let me see the scripts, but I didn't. I mean, my dad wasn't a great interferer in other people's versions of his work. In fact, he always said he didn't remember writing the things after they'd been sent off. Actors would come up to him at rehearsal and say, Jack, what did you mean by that? And he'd say, I don't know, I can't remember writing it. Just say what you feel. But know that I was so pleased with what they'd done that I didn't complain about any of it. And I eventually got to write an episode in the third series.
I was going to say, how did it come about that? How did it come about that you got to write that third episode?
I had to pitch about 3 or 4 ideas, and they picked one, and then wrote the episode and worked with an editor. It was really good experience because I didn't have much audio experience.
Yeah, had you done much
books? So.
Had you done any audio writing before? Was this your first audio play?
No, that was the first time. My father did a lot of audio, and I'd worked in audio both up here and down in London, so I'd had a bit of experience of how it was done. Of course, it had changed quite a lot, but I just really enjoyed it because you can use your imagination so much more when you can't see anything. I mean, I love film and television as well, but there's something very special about audio productions. And I don't know if you heard the last Halloween one. I wasn't allowed to say I was in it, but Morag came to the rescue at the end of that. So I'm hoping they'll do some more, but at the moment, this is Doctor Who year, so concentrating on that.
Were you doing a lot of work with Matt Fitton, who's the script editor of that third box set?
Matt Fitton. Matt's lovely. He edited my episode that I did for series 3. He was lovely to work with. Very, very helpful. And Zanaeve Chown was the editor of both of my audiobooks. So
I was going to ask, how did you come to write 2 books for Big Finish?
Well, David Richardson, it just sounds so ordinary. David would just ring up or email and say, do you fancy writing an Omega Factor book? And I would just say, would I? And I'd write them an outline, and if they approved it, I'd go on. I'm still hoping for another one. They've threatened another one, but I haven't heard anything yet. But I've got their permission. I'm collaborating on this stage play with my friend Liam Rudden. So that's nearly ready to go for later in the year. And we've got Big Finish's approval of that.
So you're hoping to use some of the characters from the audio plays?
Using Morag, using mention probably of Tom's son, and of course Louise Jameson, and the rest of the characters I'm using are my father's. And Big Finish only have the audio rights, so I can actually pretty much do what I like for stage or on Vision, because they never pick that up.
I was going to say, where are you hoping to stage that?
Well, somewhere near, I'm not supposed to talk about it really because it's not fixed, but possibly sometime around Halloween, very suitable. And it won't be too far away from Glasgow, if not in Glasgow. Maybe Edinburgh, because Liam works in Edinburgh. We've had a read-through of the first draft of the script already, which went very well.
Oh, and, wow, that's exciting.
I met Liam a couple of years ago, and he interviewed me about the second audiobook, and we hit it off. So we're kind of co-writing this, which is great fun. And Lee Fanning, his partner, is also involved. So I told him I'd give him a plug for it's called Stageworks East West Limited, the company. And he's already doing other productions up here and in London. The Omega is quite exciting, but I'm not allowed to tell you anything about the plot, sorry. I just don't my mouth and all this stuff blabber comes out, so just interrupt me, because I'll talk mince, I was going to say, that's Scottish for rubbish, till the cows come home, so just shut me up if you want to ask me anything.
So what is the difference for you in writing on your own as opposed to co-writing with someone? You said it's fun, but what is it about it that's fun?
Well, we haven't actually sat in a room and done it. I think that would be very difficult. My dad used to say there would only be a couple of people you'd meet that you could actually write with. He used to write with a screenwriter called Nick McCarthy, who's still about. I'm still in touch with Nick, and they did The Regiment together. But what it's been really is I've had a talk with Liam, I've gone off and written what I think, and then I send it back to him and we have a chat, and he maybe adds some, but we haven't had any big fights or disagreements. We maybe think differently, but it's been a very pleasant experience. So I think that's more productive than having big fights with each other about what you think is going to happen. And it's all the people that I ever worked with on Omega have been great. I mean, some that are not around now, like Cyril Luckham, who played Drexel. But we've got very interesting new Drexel for the stage production. And lovely people like John Carlyle, who played Martindale, who used to tease me rotten because it was just about my first telly job. I was a bit scared of him, actually, but he was a very nice man. And lots of other people, lots of Scottish actors and people they brought up from down south. So very happy memories of Omega. And there were some quite spooky times when we were filming it. once on episode 2, they had to film it again because everything in the studio went wrong. The clock stopped. One of the cameras wouldn't work. And whether it was a supernatural effect or just something that happened, I don't know. But I remember standing on the top of a flight of stairs where I was to do one of Morag's usual appearances in the horrible grey nightie, and suddenly plunged into pitch darkness. And I also stood behind a lot of trees. In fact, I once stood behind a tree for so long that a dog came and lifted its leg on me. So obedient was I and didn't move. I think that was in a graveyard scene. But it was just all such fun, the whole thing. As it was, it did have its spooky moments as well. And I met George Galaccio again. This was when my father was still alive, and a company put out DVD extras, put out the videos again as CDs. And my father had slight memory loss. He knew who everyone was, but he tended to repeat himself. But they did this wonderful interview. They said, "Do you want to come in on this?" I said, "No, I'll talk to you later." But they made him look like a real absent-minded professor, but it was great. I couldn't look at it for a few years after he died because it made me cry. But that's when interest sort of started up in Omega again. And quite a few academics have written stuff about it as well.
You said when you applied for the role, no one knew who you were. At what stage did people start? Did they find out that you were the
when they gave
daughter?
me the job, there wasn't any point in saying. But when I actually got the job, because it's five episodes over the series with them, I just told them, so that was all right. They knew it wasn't. My dad had influenced them in any way. It's probably pretty silly, but that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, earn it yourself. So you've got stage play coming up. What else are you working on in terms of what else are you hoping to get out of the
Well, I'm
future?
working on another project that has dance, music, and dialogue with a friend, and we actually were founded about 18 months ago to do a development of this by Creative Scotland. It's very difficult to get money from Creative Scotland. You have to fill in endless forms, and I think there's more skill in the form filling than there is in actually writing the project. So we're hoping to get another one on the road next year with a full-length show, and that involves musicians, words, dance, and all the music's original because Derek's the composer. And we want to take live musicians because I think that's very important, not to have recorded music. But that makes it very expensive. But we've got a string quintet with whom Derek's worked before. So they did the development, and we're hoping to take them on a small tour. And I've written another book, which I was commissioned by another company, but let's just say we didn't see eye to eye. It didn't, when I finished it, I expect to be edited. I don't think my stuff's perfect, but it just wasn't going anywhere. So it involves Doctor Who characters, and I'm going to try and send it to Matt Fitton actually and see what he thinks I should do with it, because 70,000 words is a lot to just waste and put in a drawer. And some of it I was quite proud of, and it needs work. But anyway, those are the things I'm working on just now, apart from little bits about monologues and things with groups of friends in Glasgow.
So Scotland's always been well known, I mean, particularly Edinburgh with the Fringe Festival, for finding new writers, new actors, new comedy. Is Scotland still do people still do as much in terms of going out trying new theatre? Is that still common?
Still go to the Fringe. I think one tends to get lost at the Fringe. There's so much. Someone was saying, I still work. I do a lot of lay official work for Equity, the Actors Trade Union. Not paid work, but just on committees and stuff. And someone was saying, why don't they do a survey of what happened, how many people got on to further heights after they'd done a show at the Fringe? But you're more likely to get lost because there's so many. And our campaign at the moment is to make it more accessible for young people to put their shows on at the festival, because at the moment it just costs so much. Accommodation, venues, it's just a bit of a rip-off, actually. So I mean, I've done the Fringe, I've been there not for some years, but I don't think that's the place to be discovered really anymore. I think there's more work in there are a lot of small theatres all around Scotland and small companies starting up who do very interesting stuff. And during lockdown, we used to record our stuff, and my friend has a small radio channel, and we broadcast that. We did some work with some Americans as well. There are lots of opportunities, but it's not easy working in the arts at the moment in the UK, because, as you might imagine, the government does not prioritise the arts. I'm not quite sure what it prioritises other than its own investments in offshore bank accounts, but let's not go into that.
Sending people to Rwanda too. Listen, it has been a real joy talking with you. Thank you so much for your time. We've really enjoyed the contribution that the Omega Factor has made to the Big Finish range. Your dad freaked me out when I was young, and you continue to freak me out when I got older. But we're really thankful for all you've contributed.
Aileen awoke with a start. The only light came from the numbers on the little digital clock on the bedpost. It was just after 3 a.m. The witching hour, her father used to call it, much to her mother's annoyance. She did not feel in any way alarmed, but she was sure that she could hear urgent voices from the direction of the stairwell. This in itself was unusual, as her neighbours were elderly and generally quiet. Perhaps someone was in serious difficulty. The air was cold. She pulled on a woolen sweater, which she kept folded neatly at the side of her bed, and felt her way through what passed for her espace de vie et de travail in the minuscule apartment. When she reached her front door, she put her ear to the wood. She still heard unusual sounds, murmurings, mutterings, muffled cries of fear. She resisted the urge to return as quickly as possible to her bed. Perhaps she was dreaming. Summoning all of her nerve, she undid the safety chain and opened the door. The noises ceased. The darkness was absolute. The usual inadequate landing light was off. Aileen was just about to close the door when a hand emerged from the darkness and gripped her by the throat. She could not scream. Indeed, she was unable to move. She felt warm breath upon her cheek, but the blackness was too intense to see her attacker's face. The grip loosened, but still she remained paralyzed. Then a voice broke the silence, a man's voice, silken and soft in tone, yet full of absolute power. A voice which she sensed would have to be obeyed. "Do not be afraid, young woman. You are the most special. You have been chosen. Listen very carefully, and I shall tell you what you must do."
All right, Philip, how was that for you? Having a
That's
chat
great.
with Natasha.
Lots of fun. Yeah, enjoy
She's
that.
a
Thanks
lovely
for that.
person. Yeah.
She's.
She's got some great stories there. So always interesting to talk to our guests. Now, Philip, before we finish up, I've got to check my list to find out who has to go first with our recommendations.
I'll go.
You're going to go first?
Hang on.
Hang
I'll
on.
go first.
Hang on. What if it's my turn? Hang on. Let me check.
Yeah.
No, it's your turn.
Okay, I am going to recommend the final in the Sontarans versus Russians series, in name only. Oh, so good. I've really, really, really enjoyed the 4 CDs. This has been a wonderful series. I've loved the fact that Big Finish went back to monthly releases for these.
You did?
I did. I mean, as much as it's easy to forget from month to month what's going on, with a box set, you binge them and you forget about them. It's easy. The fact that there was once a month, it really built anticipation. And this last one, Jonathan Carley is the War Doctor. He just does an amazing job. And yeah, I'm really enjoying his performance. And I'm a bit worried this might be the last of him. I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's going to be more War Doctor or not, young War Doctor. But this is one.
They're repackaging the series. Isn't it called The War Doctor Rising coming up?
Yes. Oh, there's more coming, is there?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, because Jonathan Carley does just an amazing job as a young John Hurt.
But The War Doctor Begins can only begin for so long. So they're going to War Doctor Rising now, I think, or Rises.
Well, that's
something.
good. That's fun.
Yeah.
The whole Sontaran versus Reese, I think I've recommended every one along the way, so my apologies for that. They're all good. This is the War Doctor. It wraps up a lot of plot lines. It actually touches on all the previous stories in a different way. You actually see what the through line is. There was some clever through lines. John Dorney has written it, and anything John Dorney writes is going to be good. So there is some timey-wimey and some confusing stuff and some wrapping up stuff. Just beautifully performed by the whole cast. Sound design is amazing. It is just a really great conclusion to the series and makes sense of all the stories and what's going on. So if you like a bit of war and epic storytelling, this is for you. And there's Sontarans, there's Brutans, there's Gallifrey, there's I was going to say Strax. That's wrong. It's the actor who plays Strax. Come on, Dan Starkey. But yeah, Christopher Ryan is it as well. It's John Banks. It's just great. So enjoy. What about you? What have you listened to? Have you listened to something this time? Are you going to recommend another TV show, Dwayne?
Well, kind of both. It does relate to audio but it's also watching because it's only the audio that exists. But I'm going to recommend Ian Levine's Facebook group, because on that group, Ian has been working on reconstructions. He's been reconstructing a few different stories and using AI. So he's got a team of a few people working on these reconstructions. Now, can I just say, for anyone, because I know Ian Levine is a divisive character in fandom. Can we just put that aside? Just enjoy these stories for what they are and for what he's trying to do with them. He's trying to bring them back to us as closely as possible. They're not perfect. Of course, they can be criticized a bit if you really want to. But I personally have been really, really enjoying them. Just before recording, I finished watching The Massacre Part 2, which he just released, called The Sea Beggar, and really, really enjoyed that. And one thing I really enjoyed about it was The Sea Beggar. If you listen to the audio of it, there's a lot of walking around the streets, and just a lot of non-talking action going on through there. So they've been able to animate that as best they can using AI, and I've really enjoyed that. They've got Anne Shapley through there with a major role in that episode. So it's the start of her, and I've really enjoyed those first 2 episodes of The Massacre. It's a story that I've never really got into because I found it hard to digest the audio, and the reconstructions that they've had have been even harder for me to get into that story in particular. This is the first time I've really, really got my teeth into it, and I'm really enjoying it. So he's also about to release The Feast of Stephen, believe it or not.
Okay.
So Dalek Master Plan episode 7. I just watched a bit of episode 6 which is Coronas of the Sun, which is really nice as well. So he's also working on The Savages, that's about to come out. He's working on The Space Pirates. He's working on Marco Polo. So all these great things. Just put aside any personality issues with the guy and just enjoy these episodes. I think you'd be in for a good time.
Yeah, I agree. I've actually thought they were pretty good. It's just after our discussion about social media last week, the amount of nasty comments about these.
Oh, even his
releases.
group's gone. Oh, right, I mean, just the releases.
I used to be in his group. I can't be in his group because it gets too nasty in his group, particularly. And he can often be very nasty about people as well. But I've really enjoyed these reconstructions, and I think that it's a new and a good thing to add to the canon in terms of for people to watch it. And I think definitely in terms of the massacre, it's the best reconstruction they've done. Of course, there's faults to it, lots of faults, but it is the best reconstruction there is at the moment, I believe. But just listening to people just attack saying how awful it is and how much they hate it and how bad it is, and just going, oh, good grief, guys. No one can appreciate anything. I'm just finding the division. I mean, the new character option stuff that came out. I'm not sure. Yeah, I got my villains, which are just wonderful, the most amazing characters. Which I just adore them. They're absolutely beautiful and constructed. But people just whinge and complain about them as well. They complain about.
Well, what's wrong with that? Just you holding it up there, it looked fine to me.
No, I think it's fantastic. No, but people just complain about the price. They'll complain about how many copies there are. They'll complain about the postage. It's just, for goodness sake, everyone just goes on and on about anything, and just to think, get a life, guys. Like, don't pay for it, don't buy it. But and then what they're not getting, and why doesn't it include this, and why isn't there? And I just
Hey, I've been touching grass a lot lately. It's not that bad. Maybe you should try it too.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. I don't know what it means.
Take a breath before you publish anything.
That's it. That goes for everybody, I think.
Yes.
All right.
You can't say something nice. Don't say anything at all.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. If you're going to say something that can be perceived as not nice, there's a difference between saying negative something and not nice. So I think you can criticize something. But like you said, as long as you give the reasons why, it's okay. So not just for the sake of it or because you don't like someone.
Everyone is going to love In Name Only. So Time versus Rituals. I don't think anyone can not enjoy that series of CDs.
Yeah, I haven't got to that one yet, but the first
two
three
Charlie
have been
stories.
sensational.
What else can you want? 2 Charlie stories.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
And Kerry's in there too. In one of them.
I know. So exciting to have Kerry's back.
Very good. All right. Once again, Philip, it has been great to be in your company. Thank you.
And yours too, Dwayne. Thank you for the time.
All right. We'll catch you next time. Next episode's a big one. Catch you later.
Bye.
This has been the Sirens of Audio episode 199, Unmuting Morag, with our guest Natasha Gerson and your host Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. More about us at sirensofaudio.com. Comment below to give us your feedback or contact us via email sirensofaudio@gmail.com or via any one of our socials using the handle @AudioSirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.